Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the first full day of the Barron's Top Advisors Summit. Please welcome to the stage Head of Dow Jones Wealth and Asset Management, Sterling Shea.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Thank you for being here. It is such a pleasure to welcome everyone to the 14th annual Barron's Top Advisor Summit. By a show of applause, can I ask how all of you felt about our change in format to an open networking event last night? Okay, that makes me feel like we're off to a good start. Well, we've got much in store for you today. As I mentioned, this is the 14th annual hosting of this conference, and I believe that its need, the need for the Barron's Advisor Program, is as acute today as it was when we started this program almost 15 years ago. That need is really twofold. The first relates to our coverage of your industry in Barron's Magazine and our sister properties across Dow Jones. When we began this program 15 years ago, we did so because we saw a rather remarkable change in Barron's readership. We survey our readers roughly every 5 years, and we saw a significant shift in our readers' use of a financial advisor, which previous to the point 15 years ago was largely self-directed investors. But over a period of 5 years, our readers' use of an advisor went from the low 20% range to almost 90%. Now, frankly, I think the reason for that was twofold. First, they were getting wealthier. They had more complex problems that they needed a professional to help them with. Second of all, frankly, I think they got burned in the tech bubble. But the point was they were turning to financial intermediaries. And when we wanted to respond to that, we looked at your business, and we found the tremendous depth of passion and expertise and acumen that great financial advisors bring on behalf of their clients was largely unrecognized in the mainstream media. And we saw it as a huge opportunity for our brand to educate the consumer investing public on the value that a great financial advisor can bring. The mainstream media was focused on the bottom 1% driving negative headlines. We wanted to focus on the top 1% and tell the story about the value they can provide to families. We feel as passionately about that message now as we did when we started. Yours is still a noble profession that goes largely underappreciated in America. We want to help change that. The second part of it, though, was the idea we had that we could use the power of our brand to bring together the very best people in the industry, to share ideas with one another about how they're producing sustainable, positive outcomes for their clients. And through that exchange of information, we believe we could collectively raise the standard of excellence in wealth management, the beneficiaries of which would be the end user clients. That's the purpose behind this event, to bring the very best people in the industry together, to have the definitive conversation on what is the state of the state and the state of the art in sophisticated wealth advisory. Now, we think we've created a program for you, an agenda, that'll help foster those conversations. But it's really your responsibility over the next day and a half. It's your opportunity to give back to the industry by being an active and vocal participant in this conference. The program, the agenda, the presenters, the material is only the conduit for the conversations because it's the practical application in your businesses of what you learn that can drive better, more positive, sustainable client outcomes. And we believe that's what the industry needs to continue to serve more people more deeply. Now, at the same time, though, I would submit to all of you that this is going to be seen as a period of transformative change for wealth management. As the largest generation of your clients, the baby boomers, shift from the accumulation to the distribution phase in their life, their need set is going to fundamentally change. And we believe what they value and seek out of an advisor relationship 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will be very different than what they valued a few years ago. That's going to force you to adapt your business, adapt your approach, and drive deeper value for your clients. We believe that's also, though, going to be a tremendous generator of money in motion in the industry. It's going to expose mediocrity from advisors who are not capable of making a transition to drive deeper value. We think that's going to put massive money into motion. Now, it'll be a great opportunity for those who are able to have the wherewithal and the business model to adapt to that change, but at the same time, it's going to prove challenging. The program here today is designed to stimulate your mindset in thinking about your business model, your strategy, and your ability to construct more resilient portfolios for clients. So do me a favor right now as I'm speaking, pull out the agenda, take a look at what the offerings are, because we've got lots of choices for you. We're also trying a lot of new speakers in new formats. Nearly all of our sessions this year, as opposed to years past, are going to be fireside conversations with a moderator who's going to mine very deeply to get to the heart of the matter in the topics that we're presenting. I'm often asked by people who see our agendas who are not in the business, you say, well, if Barron's goal is to perpetuate better client outcomes, how come so much of the agenda is about building your business and marketing and creating a new client base? Well, we believe very adamantly, it is our hypothesis, in fact, that the businesses most likely to produce exceptional client outcomes are those thriving, stable, growing practices. The ones most likely to produce negative consequences are the struggling, unprofitable ones. So that healthy, strong, thriving business model is what we encourage the very best advisors to have so they can serve more people. And we've dedicated a major portion of the content for that. One thing that hasn't changed is that every session over the next day and a half will have maximum opportunity for interactivity with the audience. Nearly 50% will be your chance to have a dialogue with the speakers. So be an active participant, raise your hand, make a comment, ask a question. Because again, it's only through that exchange of information that we can really harness the opportunity of the incredible industry talent that's gathered here in this room today. One of the other new things we're doing this year is we've invited every firm that has representation on the Barron's Top Advisor ranking to identify 5 individuals who they believe represent the best possible caliber younger generational talent in their firm. We've created a separate track that we're calling Millennial. It's loosely defined along those lines because we believe, again, the future of the industry is going to be contingent upon its ability to recruit and mentor new talent. That's happening at the team level on a lot of your teams and a lot of your organizations. But if you see some younger people around the audience today, that's why they're here for, and it's a really special accomplishment that they were identified as one of the 5 leading candidates in their firm to participate in this program. Today, one of the main themes that you're going to hear a lot about is the notion of disruption and change. We believe that looking forward, wealthy American families have never needed or been willing to place as much value on the services you provide. But the flip side of that coin is we think wealthy families are more empowered now than ever before to judge the quality of the advice that they're receiving. That's going to force disruption and change in the industry. Another factor that's going to force disruption and change is the emergence of technology in many formats. Technology has the power to completely disrupt what you do, but I believe it's going to be additive. It also is going to have a remarkable opportunity to better inform you as you think about financial planning, as you think about outcomes, and as you think about investment portfolios. Again, creating the service model that's going to best answer your clients' needs is going to depend on your ability to harness technology. Well, our opening session this morning brings together 2 of the world's foremost experts in AI and robotics to talk about what they see as the future from their vantage point and how that may play out across society and culture and, of course, financial services. Neil Jacobstein is chairman of the Artificial Intelligence and Robotics track at Singularity University, whose mission is to educate, inspire, and empower a new generation of leaders to apply exponential technology to address humanity's grand challenges. He's also a distinguished visiting scholar at Stanford University, where his research focuses on augmented decision systems. Neil explores innovation, disruption, and the real-world applications of AI and robotics. He's also a Henry Crown Fellow at the Aspen Institute. Joining the panel as well is Keller Renato. Keller is a robotics and healthcare innovator who is showing the world how drone technology can save lives. He is the CEO and co-founder of Zipline, which manages robotic aircraft designed to carry life-saving medical supplies to areas in need. Called a visionary project by the World Health Organization and the new face of the aerospace industry in the New York Times, Zipline uses cutting-edge technology to leapfrog the absence of pre-existing infrastructure all over the globe. He's a graduate of Harvard University and in 2016, he was named one of the most creative people in business by Fortune magazine. The panel will be moderated by our friend, Barron's top-ranked advisor, Pat Dwyer. He's a 25-year veteran of Merrill Lynch and the Private Banking and Investment Group. He's been a perennially top-ranked advisor in our top 100 and Florida state-by-state lists. I think the panel's going to kick it off well and get the conversation going in a great way this morning. So please join me in giving a warm Barron's welcome to this morning's panel. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited. We've got two great people here to talk to us today, and we're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off with Neil, and he's going to give us a little bit of a background on what is AI and robotics. What is it? He's going to define that for us, and then we'll move on to Keller, who's a practitioner in the space. So let's go.
Great. Let me stand up here. I speak better when I'm standing. Can we get the slides, please? All right. Artificial intelligence and robotics are exponential technologies that double in price performance every 18 to 24 months. AI is now moving so quickly that you need stop-action photography or augmentation in order to resolve the blur of events. I'm going to talk to you about 7 drivers of the AI revolution: capital, algorithms, hardware, data, talent, applications, and responsibility. This ancient computing device hasn't had a major upgrade in 50,000 years. If your laptop or your cell phone hadn't had an upgrade in 5 years, you'd be concerned about that. So what is AI? It's pattern recognition techniques to solve practical business and technical application problems. It's software agents that can work together to solve complex problems. It's a vision of superhuman intelligence that really hasn't happened yet in spite of science fiction movies. And it's computer science accelerating all of the other exponential technologies like synthetic biology and nanotechnology and robotics and even AI. People sometimes want to know the relationship between deep learning and computer science. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and AI is a subset of computer science. This is Demis Hassabis from DeepMind. You can see a Go player that is in its embryonic development. This is a player for an Atari breakout game. This is what develops expertise. It starts from scratch. It's playing at a mediocre human level now. After 240 minutes of play, it'll burrow up the left-hand side of the screen and play from the back court where the game has no defenses. This is the embryonic beginning of something that happened this year, which was the AlphaGo player beat the champion Chinese Go player, Qi Jai, 3-0. This was a remarkable event. Chess has an average number of alternative moves per turn of about 35. Go has an average number of alternative moves per turn of about 250, and 250 after that, and 250 after that. So it's a very deep tree of alternative moves. This is an AlphaGo 0 that is not based on learning prior Go games. This is a system that just played with the rules of Go, and after 3 days, it surpassed the ability of the Korean grand champion in Go, Lee Sedol. After 21 days, it surpassed the ability of the Chinese champion. And then after 40 days, it is unparalleled. So this system is just playing against itself with the rules of Go. That is true disruption, not just a game changer, but an alteration in the landscape of the game. Here's Lebradas from Carnegie Mellon. It plays Texas no-limit poker. And this system played 120,000 hands against 4 world champions in poker. and beat them to the tune of 1.77 million in poker chips. Ken Forbes built a system called CogSketch that could outperform the average American in the Raven progressive matrices test of visual and analogical reasoning. Take a look at this. If you look at the cell that's empty in the bottom right, one of those 8 alternatives is the right answer. The answer is D because it matches the symmetry of the vertical column and the row. We now can talk to our devices using English, devices like the Amazon Echo connected speaker and its Alexa agent. It's not just an auditory interface. We now have a visual interface with the Echo Show. You can ask it to show you any number of things, video clips, or the structure of DNA. And now we can drive our intelligence onto mobile platforms like the Ford Fusion car, and we are driving our intelligence into robots. This is the DARPA 2015 Robot Challenge, and you can see that gravity is a bitch. It's very hard to maintain balance on 2 feet. We do it easily, and it really is hard for even great research teams to get robots to do things that we find easy to do. But watch what happens 1 year later. People love, by the way, seeing robots fail. We get a perverse sense of satisfaction out of that. Yeah, it's rough. Okay, I think you get the idea. This is Boston Dynamics robot 1 year later. Look at the stability on 2 feet. Remarkable stability. Not just indoors, but outdoors. It can traverse uneven territory and slippery territory. If it loses its balance, it can recover its balance because it has under-actuated control systems in its legs. Watch this, it's really amazing. Now, I was going to cut it off here, but Sterling had a favorite part of this video clip, so let me just show you one more thing here. Of course, you want to go for a walk with your favorite robot. And it can do practical tasks inside of a warehouse. Now, these are just 10-pound boxes. And you'll see that robots will evolve very quickly after this. And they are remarkably good at getting frustration, overcoming frustration. Its programmer gives it a hard time. It's remarkably persistent. Yikes. We can hope that it won't get up, or that its ancestors won't know about this little faux pas. Yeah. And now it'll vote with its feet and leave the laboratory. So this is the next version, 2017. This is Handle. They've gotten rid of the feet, and now it runs on wheels. It's remarkably graceful and stable and fast. It can pick up 100 pounds. It can jump over high barriers like traffic barriers. It's really quite agile. And one could imagine it doing ice skating at some point. All right, let's move forward. So we're going to see intelligence driven into micro and nano systems. The trends in materials and manufacturing are clear: increasing precision, decreasing cost, increasing flexibility, increasing speed, and complexity is going to be free. And if you want to understand the underlying hierarchical recognition systems, you can start with just a set of pixels. Then the first layer of recognition can detect edges, vertical lines, horizontal lines, or diagonal lines. Second stage, object parts like ears and eyes and noses and mouths. And the third stage, faces. And we now have facial pattern recognition through AI that is better than what human beings can do. But you know, the truth is that AI and machine learning will not do everything well. And one of the things that it won't do well is explanation. So if you have an analyst and your analyst can't tell your client why it's recommended Amazon versus NVIDIA, that's a problem. So there's a program at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency called XAI to get better explanation out of machine learning and AI systems. AIs have been sponsored all over the world by Fortune 1000 companies. I did a study of 360 different innovative applications of AI. These are the patterns that I found they had in common. It's not just better, faster, cheaper, it's different. AI allows us to expand the range of the possible, to do things that we didn't know we could do before. And if you want to know where to invest in machine learning and AI, in any one of these areas, there are great applications in design, diagnosis, manufacturing and management, customer service, sales and configuration, and quality control. For example, here's Jim Gao, who used his 15% free time at Google to improve the energy efficiency of the Google data centers by 40%. You can also use AI to stop litigation before it starts. If you're lucky, you can have a system monitoring all your corporate communications, and it can look for weak signals of serious threats to your company in the form of lawsuits. If you want to know what to do, here's a short list to disrupt the playing field with today's AI. You don't have to wait for the future. To augment or automate white-collar jobs, to do it now because AI is already generating billions of dollars of value. To build an exponential toolkit for application problem solving, to rethink every aspect of your business, not just repave the cow paths. To become an exponential organization that takes risks and has a flat organization that can respond to the speed of change today, and to design for a world that you actually want to live in. For example, we're going to see a lot of disruption in the labor space. A study done at Oxford University indicated that over the next 10 to 20 years, 47% of routine US jobs would be vulnerable to automation, and a World Bank study indicated that those numbers would be much higher over the next 10 to 20 years in Thailand, China, Ethiopia, etc. So rather than gloom and doom or nirvana, I welcome you to the adult conversation. AI comes with trade-offs: faster, cheaper, better, problem solving, but also job disruption, human identity change, and risk amplification. Operational recommendations in each of the 7 areas. You can read them yourself. The most important thing here that I want to leave you with is that you can use AI to empower yourselves as advisors and your business. This is not a technology of the future, it is today, and you can master it. And if you can't master it personally, you can hire people to help you do it. There's a broad range of people and organizations that can empower you to use AI to build your business boldly. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was a lot. Well, that was terrific. That was a great background. And so, Keller, why don't you tell us about how you're using this robotics technology in your amazing business?
Sure. Well, I'm part of a company called Zipline, and we are kind of a specific example of basically all of the things that Neil is talking about. We started the company about 7 years ago when most people thought that starting a robotics company was a really stupid idea. And today, Zipline delivers about 30% of the national blood supply of Rwanda using autonomous electric aircraft that weigh about 20 pounds and can deliver blood on demand to any of the hospitals across the country. We're a for-profit business. We have a contract directly with the government of Rwanda, and we're now expanding to other governments in that region as well as here in the US. So do you guys want to see how it works?
Absolutely.
I know it sounds a little weird, so if people want to roll the video. People don't actually believe me when we talk about what we do. So this is our distribution center in the middle of Rwanda. This was all basically a cornfield 10 months ago, and in about 2 weeks, we were able to turn it into the first fully autonomous distribution center in the world. When a patient is having an emergency at any hospital, they will text us via WhatsApp telling us what blood types they need. Our team members will immediately pull that blood out of stock, which is delivered to us by the Rwandan National Center for Blood Transfusion. We scan it into our computer system so they know where that blood is going. It's loaded into a simple package with a QR code on the side of the package so the plane knows where to take that package. And then our flight operations team will load it into one of these autonomous electric aircraft, and it's launched. It's accelerated from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in about half of a second. It's fully autonomous from the moment it leaves the end of the distribution, the launcher. This is Davis, our air traffic controller, communicating with air traffic control. This is actually now the largest airport in Rwanda by flight volume. And when the plane arrives at the hospital, we're delivering from about 40 feet up. We can deliver into we call it their mailbox. It's about 2 parking spaces, and the doctor immediately has what they need to save a human life. And these vehicles are all controlled, the entire fleet is controlled via iOS, so we build this interface to work on iPads. You can actually see here a plane about to make a delivery. We're watching from the distribution center 50 kilometers away. This plane's about to deliver. There it just delivered the package. You can see its status just switched back to inbound. And there's another plane in the sky at the same time headed to that same hospital. When the plane comes back and lands, we use centimeter level GPS to catch a hook on a line and decelerate the plane from 100 kilometers an hour to 0 in about half of a second, and then we landed on a bouncy castle. So, I'll be brief. The reason that this was needed is that 50% of the blood used in Rwanda is used for moms with postpartum hemorrhaging. And 30% is going toward kids under the age of 5 who have severe anemia due to malaria. So blood is an absolutely crucial product. People's families rely on it at the scariest moments in that family's life. And access to it is a huge challenge because it doesn't last very long. Platelets have a shelf life of 6 days, for example, and there are many different types of blood, A, B, and O, and positive and negative Rh factor. And that means that stocking ahead of time what you need when you can't possibly predict demand is a fool's errand. It's basically impossible. And so what's so exciting about what the government of Rwanda has shown is that they've actually been able to decrease waste from 6% to 0%, which has not been done by any other country in the world, including the United States. And in the meantime, they have increased access to these products so much that actually demand has increased by 162% for blood products at the hospitals that we serve. This is like a mind-boggling change. This should not happen in healthcare. We do both routine and emergency deliveries, but the system has now done over 800 life and death deliveries in the last 10 months. So the reason that we feel so strongly about this is I think that when people hear a lot of the absolutely mind-boggling ideas that Neil talks about, people make a couple assumptions. They say that this kind of advanced technology is going to, A, that it has the potential to be very, very dangerous, and B, they conclude that it will start in the United States or rich countries, Japan or Europe. And those two assumptions, we have to question them. Because in fact, it's possible to use artificial intelligence and robotics and machine learning to address some of the most fundamental problems that are faced by billions of people in the world that we have to solve as a human species, and that can happen, it can start in some of the lowest resource countries in the world, that it won't necessarily start here in the US. So that's all I wanted to mention from the start. But
wow, that was a lot. Well, if you think this isn't going to affect our business, this is just completely ironic. So this morning I wake up, I go onto my Merrill Lynch Good application, and I get an email. And the email says, would you like to try the firm's new digital assistant? I couldn't believe it. I was really shocked, and I don't know if it was the CTO just sent it to me as a joke this morning, but it's here. So it's incredible what's happening. Obviously, as financial advisors, we have to understand this from a lot of different perspectives. We need to understand it from our clients' investment perspective. They're going to have to invest in this. We need to understand it from the perspective of how it's going to change our business. How do you think this is going to change financial services business? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think probably all of you have seen some initial fee compression, just to get to the heart of it. And I think that trend will continue. I've heard some people say, oh, we might as well throw in the towel now. I don't agree with that. I think that high net worth individuals and companies that are managing huge assets are not about to turn over all their assets to a robo-advisor. That would be unwise. And people do want a relationship with their financial advisors. Even if people pretty much know the right thing to do in terms of asset allocation, they often don't have the discipline to do it. And it's kind of like going to the gym and having a personal trainer. It helps to have somebody holding you accountable. It helps to have somebody who really knows the ropes. And I think people are going to value that relationship for a long time.
Keller, you're 30, so you have a very different perspective. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, not that my perspective should count for that much. I'm certainly not an expert, but I mean, a couple things are definitely obvious to me. One is that it's possible to build a business that does impressive things with far fewer resources than has been true in the past. So I think that a lot of, older, more traditional companies have had these competitive moats because they haven't been scared of young, ambitious teams coming after their businesses and their markets, and I think that that is going to change. It's now possible with the help of AI and machine learning to build startups for very little capital if you have the right kind of team. And that means that, I think it's going to be great for customers, but it's probably pretty scary for some of the larger, more traditional businesses. And the last thing I'll mention, I mentioned teams. I think fundamentally the way teams work is also changing. Something you mentioned was flat organizations. And so I can speak directly to this. The way that Zipline operates, we empower everyone in the company to make CEO-level decisions with regard to the specific things that they own. And so we only hire people who we feel can be deserving of that level of trust and power. And to be honest, people who are graduating from college today don't really want to be part of a hierarchical organization where they're going to be told what to do and then you wait for the person above you to retire. That's just people who are graduating from college want to be part of teams where decisions are made in collaborative, fast, dynamic ways. And I think that that's going to, my suspicion is that all companies are going to have to change to meet those preferences. And it's not just about hiring the best talent, it's also about just good decision making in a world that is as volatile as Neil is talking about. Stuff is changing so fast.
Things are moving very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So basically the advantages of scale and scope that all of the large organizations that we work for have today, some of those advantages are going to go away. And fairly rapidly, right? And you can see it right now. You have payment processing, and they're picking away at different parts of these large organizations, taking away their margins and competing on all these different levels, and kind of attacking that moat.
Yeah.
So it'll be different. So we have to prepare our teams. We all have these teams of young people, and they want a future in our industry. And what kinds of skills do we have to give them? What do we need to be training them to do to really understand this so they can prepare themselves for this change? Because it's going to mean that they're going to have to change what they do at work more quickly than we have had to do. They're going to have to change what their description of their job is. So.
Right. Well, I think that one of the things that's not going away is the need to train people in critical thinking skills. That's something that has been relatively weak in our school system, both private and public. And it is really important. Also, math skills, the fundamentals of machine learning really involve linear algebra. and math skills are not going to become obsolete anytime soon. Likewise, with science skills, understanding the basics of the world around us, understanding the fundamentals of the periodic table or physics, so that you can reason about what you're looking at, whether new companies are doing things that are just blowing smoke, or they really have legs and they're going to go somewhere.
Do you guys feel that, what countries are really leading in this space? Who is winning this new arms race in artificial intelligence?
Well, I think this is a little scary. The U.S. is cutting back on a large number of areas of fundamental scientific research. We are going to spend, I read the other day, in the next 5 years, we're spending $1.5 billion on artificial intelligence research as a country. That might sound like a lot until you know that China is investing $150 billion in artificial intelligence. And so, especially as we approach, this moment of truth. I know you might call it Singularity University is named after this idea of a moment of truth in artificial intelligence, but it's hard to understate how important for international power dynamics, competitive dynamics in business, it is to be, I think, investing in this technology right now while it's in a nascent, high potential stage before the U.S. loses its place in the world.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with actually one of my kids who spent some time in Beijing and was doing some computer science work over there with Harvard. And my daughter came back and she described how they create software in China, but it's like creating software in a pond because it's a closed system. So they have some advantages. They have a huge market. They have a ton of programmers. They're putting tons of money into it, and we can't get in. So they're.
They also have disadvantages. The U.S. has a competitive advantage here in that people want to live in the United States.
Right.
And the U.S. for the last 50 years has been able to recruit the top computer scientists and technical talent from China and other countries in the world to come here and come to our universities and work for our technology companies. But obviously, this is a moment of truth. Like that, we need to be doing that more than ever before if we don't want to lose that.
Yeah, and we're seeing more graduate students going back to China and going back to India to start businesses there because they see huge opportunities there. Just to pick up on one of the points that Keller made, people sometimes think that private investment will make up for the decrease in public investment in AI and robotics. And actually, much of the success of the private sector in AI and robotics is built on 40, 50, 60 years of sustained R&D from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency and the National Science Foundation and the Navy and a lot of different groups that have really been patient sponsors of AI. So that really matters.
Not just AI, everything. Yeah. Everything that you guys saw in the video that I showed of what makes it possible for a tiny team of young college graduates to start something like what we're doing today. It all comes from the space industry that was primarily funded by government. We rely on GPS that's military grade, came out of the U.S. military. We rely on batteries that started when we were trying to the government built in trying to get to the moon. So that's all of it comes from that kind of research. And by the way, if I can mention one other thing that always blows my mind. I'm not a financial expert. You guys are the experts. But one thing that blows my mind when you just think about the economy fundamentally is that I was talking to a friend and he mentioned, last year in 2017 there was $70 billion invested in startups in the United States. He was like, that's a huge amount of money. It must be a bubble. And then I went and did the research. It turns out that the top, I think it's 50 companies in the US, did $1 trillion of stock buybacks last year. That is mind-boggling. That means that these companies are producing so much money. We live in such an era of abundance that they can't even figure out where to invest it. So they're just buying their own stock. And if you look at it as a machine, that means we're reinvesting 7% or less, 7% if you're just looking at stock buybacks, we're reinvesting 7% of the money we earn in growth as a country. And I don't know how you guys feel, but that seems like scary low to me. And I bet it compares very poorly with most other countries out there. And so I think it's not for a lack of resources. It's actually like we have the resources. I think it's just the will to do new things, and also it's having the technical talent to actually be able to.
You need the people.
You need the people, yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, Lindsey Graham, I guess, was hosting a fundraising thing upstairs from above my office, and a bunch of my clients were at it. And I guess he was talking about immigration, and that he said that everybody in Congress, the Democrats and Republicans, all understand that we're going to have a big problem, in our society as people are knocked out of work from artificial intelligence, and that we need more high-skilled workers, and that we have to adjust our immigration to make sure that we bring that talent from these other countries, and they come here and they stay here. How important do you think that is to, the future of this?
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
There's no question that there will be a lot of people knocked out of work. I mean, if you look at self-driving cars and self-driving trucks, there are a lot of people involved in that industry.
It's the number one job in every state.
Yeah, and if you look at what those people currently have as their skill base, it doesn't look like linear algebra. We really are going to have to spend time working on upgrading those folks' skills and thinking about various schemas for some way of making sure that they can have a reasonable quality of life. Because if we don't, they'll be angry and well-armed, and that's not a good formula.
Yeah, I mean, what we do fundamentally, we get that question a lot, and fundamentally what Zipline does is automating a huge portion of logistics that is today done by humans, and I think that we're rapidly approaching, I know this sounds weird and maybe a little breathless, but I just think if you look at the facts, it's actually just plainly the case that we're kind of approaching a moment in human history where we have diverging possibilities, and if we head toward mass inequality and mass unemployment, we are going to get one of the dystopias that you can see when you go to a theater and watch any science fiction today. But I was a big fan of Star Trek growing up, and science fiction in the 1970s was really hopeful, and it kind of told stories about humanity where it's reached the point where everybody has the basics covered, and humans are primarily focused on like research and exploration. And that is dependent on us as a species deciding that we're not okay with the first alternative, and we are going to use abundance and share it widely to educate people and give people equal access to opportunity. And I think like our choice to the window to make that choice is rapidly closing. So we feel really strongly about making that choice right now so we don't end up at...
We do. I just want to add one point to that. People may feel like thinking about this as a world of abundance is Pollyanna, and it is not. We actually could take care of everyone pretty easily, and rich people would still be rich. So the issue is not one of having a world of haves and have-nots. It's a world of haves and super-haves.
Yeah.
So inequality, in my mind, would be okay if we had a world of haves
Totally agree.
and super-haves.
Totally agree.
Well, it's funny, but this has been, if you look back in history, in the 1930s, I think, there was a lot of concern over automation during the Great Depression. People were really concerned during that time period. In fact, I think the mayor of Palo Alto wrote Herbert Hoover a letter. Herbert Hoover was from Palo Alto, and basically talking about the technocrats taking over, and that we were going to be able to produce so much that our currency was going to collapse and capitalism was going to fall apart. And of course that didn't happen. When in the 1960s, I think President Kennedy said, if man is smart enough to come up with machines that will knock people out of jobs, they can invent jobs. They can invent something for man to do. So, there's always been concern, and there's always been optimism and pessimism, but this feels a little bit different. And I think what feels a little bit different is that the machines may actually be smarter than us in 5 or 6 years. Isn't that really the...
Or maybe they're already smarter than us in very narrow areas, and it might take 15 years for them to be smarter than us in emotional intelligence and a lot of complex areas. But the critical thing is not whether there'll be new jobs. There will be new jobs related to AI and robotics. The critical thing is the ratio of new jobs to jobs displaced. And that could be an unfavorable ratio.
I'm going to ask, by the way, I'm going to open this up for questions in a couple of minutes, so start thinking about what you'd like to ask everybody. So most of the people in this room have children. How do we prepare them for just a rate of change that we've never experienced before? I mean, this is going to be very different. And I think back to 10 years ago, I came to my first Barron's meeting, and I listened to somebody, and they basically said that we needed to understand software. There was going to be a core function of business was going to be IT, and everybody needed to understand that, or you're never going to be successful. Well, this is like a whole different level now. So what do they need to understand? What do our kids need to be studying?
I mean, I guess like broadly, and this isn't necessarily specific to AI, but you know, I get to talk to kids in college and encourage them to think about things that I wish I had known when I was in college. And I think like the most important thing is that I think parents and society generally tells kids to like study what they're passionate about. And I actually think this is like bullshit.
I agree with that, by the way.
It's really a bad idea to encourage, like, you know, I read the other day that more kids every year graduate from the US college system with degrees in psychology than there are total psychology jobs in the United States.
Right.
So this is fundamentally, we are doing something wrong. I think the question we need to be encouraging kids to ask is, what is the impact you want to have in the world before you die? And I think if you approach the problem from that perspective, then everything else that you need to know falls out of it. Because whatever it is that kids want to do, I want to create awesome art, or I want to make movies, or I want to teach people, or I want to reduce poverty in the world, whatever it is, it's like, cool, that's your goal. What are the tools that you need right now to do that at the biggest scale possible? And then let's focus in high school and college on arming you with those tools so that you can achieve the goal that you want to have in life. And I think that's the difference between someone who's really happy and fulfilled when they're 35 years old versus someone who is like, I graduated with, you know, I have a PhD in English and I'm waiting on tables and I'm miserable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really important to make sure that young people know that we're at the beginning of the human story, not at the end. And that may sound strange, like it's time to throw in the towel. It is not. We have just begun civilization. And it's very important for them to have hope for the future, to see what the headroom is, like what kind of world we could create. And if you look around, most of us wouldn't be that pleased to show a visitor from another planet what our planet looks like, what CNN is reporting to us, or Fox News. I mean, it really is kind of embarrassing. So there's a lot of headroom to improve the world, and young people need to know that they can be part of the story of building a world that we can be proud of. And they can do that with critical thinking skills and a knowledge of the underlying foundations of ethics and the underlying foundations of math and science. There is a lot to do, and they can be part of it.
Excellent, thank you. With that, why don't we start with some questions from the audience? First question.
It sounds like with potential displacement of jobs, the people who are losing their jobs are people who don't have the education, perhaps, to get involved in some of these. How do you propose we provide educational opportunities for mid-career people who will be losing their jobs to AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's never been a better time to be a student, particularly a student of AI. 30 years ago, if you wanted to learn AI, you had to go to an esoteric program and have a very strong foundation in math to start with. Now you can start from zero and be on the web somewhere in Nairobi, and you can take classes from MIT or Stanford or the Khan Academy or Coursera or Udacity, and they will comp you your coursework, and if you do really well, they'll help you get a job. So it's never been easier. What's missing is to connect people's motivation with the need to educate themselves.
Great. Well, we're going to have to wrap things up here.
Yeah, I know you have more questions, but I think the gentlemen are all going to be around for a little bit over the course of the day today. And in any case, I think we've succeeded in giving some thought-provoking material to get the conversation started. So I'd like to ask for a round of applause for our panel this morning.